Hi everyone, welcome to the Sip and Spin. I am the Tipsy Spinster, and in my glass is a pink champagne cocktail because this is exactly what I would picture drinking if I was participating in spinning speed dating. What's spinning speed dating, you ask? Stay tuned, I'm going to tell you all about it. So over the course of the last hour, I've actually been playing the game of spinning speed dating, where I've been trying to match fibers with the appropriate spindles. Here's how I got started. I was thinking to myself before tonight's show, what is it that attracted me to spinning in the first place? And for years and years, I had gone to fiber festivals and shows because I was a knitter, and so I was going and taking these classes, and as I was walking through the marketplaces, I was finding these absolutely gorgeous braids and these amazing tools, and I thought to myself, what would it be like to actually make yarn? And I actually got started making yarn by doing historical reenactment, and so for those types of processes, I was using more archaic, older tools, the traditional tools like drop spindles. And there are two types of drop spindles. There are top whorl and bottom whorl. And for years, this is pretty much what I thought was out there. This is all that I thought was out there. So I had this whole compendium of top and bottom whorl spindles. And then I discovered that there are also support spindles and Turkish spindles. So there are three main types of spindles. Whorled spindles, top whorl and bottom whorl, the Turkish spindle, which has the cross, and then there's a whole arena of support spindles. And you have Phang style, Orenberg lace style, Tibetan style, bead style, and then some of the artistic ones as well. And what's interesting is they all handle fiber differently. And for a new spinner, if you grab a tool that you fall in love with and grab a fiber that you fall in love with, the two might not actually be compatible. So what you see here is what I believe to be the love connection between fiber and spindles. So I'm going to start with the most basic. I'm going to go back to the drop spindles because drop spindles really are the workhorses. You can't go wrong with a top or bottom whorl spindle. Now, depending upon the weight, this is a lighter one, so you're going to be able to get a finer yarn. And as you can see, there's little bits and samples scattered everywhere because I was sampling as I went. So this is Zwartbles, which is a fiber from the Netherlands, and it behaves a lot like, I would say, Shetland, maybe a little bit like Jacob. It's a relatively soft fiber, but has a very long staple length to it. And so with the bottom whorl spindle, I was able to get a very fine worsted spin. And with the thicker one, I was able to get a thicker, kind of semi-woolen, semi-worsted spin out of it. So I would say this is my love connection here. This is an animal fiber with a fairly long staple length, all natural. This would also work well. I mean, pretty much all of these fibers, with the exception of cotton, would spin quite nicely on a top or a bottom whorl. Now, cotton, on the other hand, and as you can see, there are cotton remnants everywhere. Oh, cotton just wanted to be friends with everybody. But you know what? Cotton likes to spin fast and tight, and really there's only one kind of spindle that can spin cotton in the way that it was meant to be spun. Unless you're using a Turkish spinner, if you're using a spindle like this, really a Tahkli is the only spindle that's going to be fast enough to get the twist in with the speed that you need so it doesn't do that. Cotton has such an incredibly short staple length that if you're not spinning fast, it's going to fall apart. And quite honestly, The only reason that I was spinning on a Tahkli tonight is just to demonstrate it. I never spin cotton on support spindles. I always do it on my e-spinner just because I cannot spin fast enough and draft fast enough to get a consistent spin. But if you really want to spin cotton, I would recommend finding a Tahkli. Now, the Acorn spindle, this is a work of art spindle. This is from Woodland Handcrafts. It's an acorn spindle with a matching bowl, and the fiber is from Woodland Pixie. Now, of course, this is going to be a match because Woodland Pixie and Woodland Handcrafts are a husband and wife team, and you cannot go wrong pairing their fiber and their spindles because as a husband and wife team, they work together, and the fiber and the spindles pair just absolutely perfectly together. It is an effortless spin, and I thought for a show about connections and love, this would be a perfect time to showcase this particular spindle and fiber combination, because here's an example of a couple that has done an absolutely fantastic job of creating products that work perfectly in tandem with each other. Not only are they beautiful to look at, they're a pleasure to work with. So moving through, we have some Phang spindles. Phang spindles are lovely because they hold a huge amount. And in this case, I have a Rolag that's mixed with Flax. And one of the reasons why these two pair well together, I would recommend Phang spindles when you have a mixture, because I don't have to put a lot of twist in. And Phang spindles don't spin fast. So if you want a tighter twist, you are going to have to flick a little bit more before winding on. But the reason why I like it with this particular fiber, it's a Merino and Flax blend. Flax doesn't require a whole lot of twist to get it to hold together. So I am getting a really nice yarn without having to do a lot of work. So the Phang spindle with a Rolag, that's a mix of merino and plant fiber. So if you're blending plant and animal fibers, the Phang spindle, sport spindles. The bead spindle, I put this together because this is a combination of merino and rose fiber. So the Woodland Handcrafts was Rambullet and mint. This is merino and rose. And this is a Spanish peacock. This is a Spanish peacock bead spindle and bowl. Again, we have a husband and wife team, which is really wonderful because these spindles are fast and they work really well with most fibers. I could probably spin cotton on these if I really wanted to, but I hate spinning cotton. But the combination of merino and rose, which is a combination of animal and plant fiber, work just beautifully on these spindles. So that was the perfect pairing with that one as well. The Turkish spindle is with alpaca, and the reason why I chose alpaca is because alpaca can be tricky. Alpaca is a luscious, luxurious fiber, but because it's so fine, like merino, it can be very slippery. And the nice thing with using a spindle like this is I can spin supported. So I'm going to go ahead and let it sit on the table without running into anything else. I'm going to let it sit on the table while I spin and practice drafting. And then as I get more comfortable with drafting out the alpaca, then I can lift it. Oops. Lift it off the table. And the wonderful thing with Turkish spindles is that as you are spinning and winding on, you're creating your center pull ball that you can fly from. Over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, half hitch on the top. And I like, Turkish spindles are deceptive. They're light, but they're big. So they can hold a lot and they can spin fine. These little guys are kind of like the workhorses. And oh, there was an epic battle. Everybody wanted to go home with the Turkish spindle tonight because they could handle all of these different fibers really well. It was a knockdown drag out between the Jacob and the Alpaca. But the Jacob fiber said, you know, I'm willing to go home with just about anyone because Jacob fiber can also be spun on pretty much anything. So the other Spanish peacock that I have is the Tibetan, and it won with the mystery fibers. So oftentimes when we start spinning, we end up getting fiber and it gets put someplace and the tag gets lost. And that's exactly what happened here. I'm pretty sure this is Merino and something, but it behaves like a down breed. It's really springy. It's really fine. There's still some crimp to it. And so I chose, or it chose to pair with this incredibly fast Spanish peacock. This is an amazing spindle because it spins so fast. It's just like spinning on my great wheel because I feel like I'm flicking off the tip, and it is effortless. I can spin fast, I can spin consistent, and I can spin a lot. So for the mystery fiber, this turned out to be the best spindle for it, and it's going to work out beautifully. I'm so excited to finish spinning up whatever this happens to be. And then the last fiber is kind of the problem child of fibers, which is why I picked it. Malabrigo is an absolutely beautiful hand-dyed fiber. It's new, and I've noticed that people either love this fiber or hate this fiber. And after working with this, I know exactly why. So off the braid, it came incredibly compacted. And as I was pulling on it and I was trying to, get my hands out, and I've been playing with this, so this is going to pull apart pretty easily. But I was just like, this is a frustrating fiber. And so I played with it with a lot of different tools. And even the drop spindles were not having it. I was getting thin and thick pieces, and I realized this is a perfect example of understanding which tool works with what fiber and fiber prep even, because to try and spin from the braid on a drop spindle, I would end up getting thick and thin, and it would not be because I couldn't spin consistently, but because this fiber is compacted. And so I'm fighting with the draft. And so I thought, well, wait a second, what's a way to fix that? I grabbed my hand cards, and it's an incredibly useful tool to have if you've got hand cards. And I just opened the fiber up and pulled it off like I would a bat. And sure enough, as soon as I pulled it off, I put it on the support spindle, the Orenberg lace spindle. This is an antique from Russia that was painted, so it's been updated. And as soon as I opened the fiber up, I was able to get this beautiful, light, airy, lace weight yarn. Which, this is absolutely beautiful. And it's not at all what I was getting with just the braid. So you have the difference between this beautiful light lace fiber and then these chunky bits of, this is what I did on the two drop spindles. And you can just see it's so uneven and it's so inconsistent. And then I grabbed one of the Rolags, and it worked with a number of the different spindles as well because I had opened up the fiber. So I guess it's almost one of those things where if you feel like you have a great fiber and a great tool, but they're not making a love connection, that would be the time to start taking a look at how the fiber is prepared, because it could be something as simple as opening it up more, drafting it in a different way, reworking it either with combs or cards. It's amazing how fiber will behave differently if it's processed differently. So here we have the spinning, speed dating. We had some amazing love connections. I think my two biggest, get a little emotional about how excited I am, would be finally finding a way to spin this mystery fiber, because the wheel was not having it. It was disgusting and it was breaking and it was awful. So this would be one of those fibers that it wants to be spun on a support spindle, and I am getting a beautiful, fine, consistent yarn. And with the Woodland woodworking, which is a gorgeous tool, I'm also getting, it's kind of sweet, I'm getting a beautiful yarn from a husband and wife fiber tool team, which is always kind of nice. So if you have the opportunity to do a little spinning speed dating before picking a tool and a fiber, I would highly encourage you to do so, because there are some great tools out there. There are some great fibers out there, but not all fibers and tools make good couples. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy spinning.